All right, dive buddies, welcome back to the deep dive. Ready to go deep?
Always. What are we diving into today?
Well, we're taking a deep dive into, a deep dive.
Okay, you're gonna have to explain that one.
So get this. We're cracking open a scuba diving rescue manual, and before you click away thinking, I'm not a diver, trust me, the psychology of what happens in these pages, it's relevant to everyone, whether you prefer land or sea.
Okay, you've piqued my interest. I'm hooked. Set the scene.
Picture this. You're exploring this amazing, perfectly preserved paddle boat wreck 80 feet down. You've got three experienced dive leaders, Gabriel, Mark, and Max, and they've made it clear. No one enters the wreck unless they're trained for it. Seems straightforward, right?
Safety first, always a good rule, especially in diving.
Exactly. So the dive goes smoothly, everyone's back on the surface, chatting, all smiles. The dive leaders head up to their cars, still in their gear, talking about dinner plans. Completely casual then. 10 minutes later, back on shore, they realize two divers are missing.
Oh wow, talk about a shift in mood. 1 minute it's all relaxed, the next, it's an emergency.
Right. And the excerpt actually says Gabriel recognized immediately that the situation was probably very serious. But think about it. You're dealing with a sunken wreck, limited air, the possibility of someone being trapped or disoriented inside. Talk about pressure.
Absolutely. And that's what makes this so fascinating to me. We talk a lot about the physical aspects of rescue, but the mental game is just as crucial. In those high-stress situations, your brain is flooded with adrenaline, cortisol, all these hormones designed to help you survive.
Right, fight or flight mode kicks in.
Exactly. Which can be helpful for a quick burst of energy, but it can also make it harder to think rationally. Your memory might be fuzzy, your decision-making impaired.
That's where training comes in, right? Having those predetermined plans, like we see in the manual. It even has this whole section about post-accident reports and dealing with the media.
Which might seem strange at first, but it makes sense. After a traumatic event, your memory can be unreliable. Having a framework for recalling the details, that's invaluable.
And the manual gets super specific. It lists 11 questions you should be prepared to answer. Things like, how did you become aware of the problem? And what first aid was administered?
It's all about establishing a clear timeline of events, not just for investigations, but for your own peace of mind later on.
So it's not just about reacting in the moment, it's about being able to process and recall those details accurately later on.
Exactly. And this is where things get really interesting, because the manual goes a step further and addresses the media.
Oh, yeah, I was going to ask about that. What's the advice there? Yeah, it basically says don't talk to the microphone, like point blank. It even acknowledges that reporters might be kind of pushy after an incident like this, especially if it's a big story.
Well, yeah. I mean, think about it. They're looking for a story,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of times that means getting those raw emotional responses. But the thing is, you're coming from such a different place in that moment.
Totally.
You've just gone through something incredibly stressful, maybe even traumatic. You could be feeling a million things at once. Guilt, relief, maybe even anger.
Not to mention, probably still in shock a bit.
Exactly. And suddenly you've got microphones in your face, cameras flashing, everyone wanting a piece of your story.
So what do you do? Just clam up? Because honestly, no comment always seems kind of suspicious.
Right, like you're hiding something.
Yeah.
And it can actually backfire, make people more suspicious. But the manual suggests a really smart alternative. Something like, an accident investigation is underway, and I'll be happy to answer questions once the authorities have completed their investigation.
So basically, acknowledge the situation but defer to the official investigation.
Exactly. It's firm, it's respectful, and it protects you legally. Because let's be real, anything you say in those moments, even with the best intentions, can be taken out of context.
Especially in the age of social media where things can go viral in a heartbeat.
Exactly. So it's crucial to protect yourself, both legally and emotionally, especially after a traumatic event.
This scuba diving manual is giving us a masterclass in crisis communications. Who knew? It really highlights the importance of thinking clearly under pressure, even when your emotions are all over the place.
It's true, and it's not something we always think about, especially not in the context of scuba diving. But those principles, they apply to so many areas of life, don't they?
Totally. It's like stay calm and carry on, but for high-stakes situations.
Right. And that brings us back to the heart of this deep dive, the psychology of rescue.
Yeah.
It's about so much more than just the physical skills. It's about mental preparedness, emotional resilience, understanding how your brain reacts under pressure.
And knowing how to communicate effectively in those critical moments, both during and after an event.
Exactly. Because sometimes The words you say or don't say can be just as important as the actions you take.
It really makes you think about those high-stress moments in our own lives, right? Even if it's not a life-or-death scuba situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever had a time where you had to make a split-second decision, maybe while driving, or dealing with a sudden problem at work?
Oh, totally. Those moments where your heart rate jumps and your mind's racing, it's like,
Yeah.
what did we learn from this scuba manual? Stay calm, stick to the facts, and don't say anything you'll regret later.
Exactly. Easier said than done. Right. But that's why it's so important to talk about this stuff, to build that mental muscle memory for dealing with pressure.
For sure. Because in those moments, it's not just about reacting, it's about reacting well. Thinking clearly when it matters most.
And that's what I love about this deep dive. It's a good reminder that we can learn from all sorts of unexpected places. Even a scuba diving rescue manual.
Right. Who knew? Well, on that note, I think it's time for us to resurface from this deep dive. But before we go, I want to leave you with this. What's your 11 questions? You know, that mental checklist you can use next time you're facing a high-stress situation.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Right. Something to ponder. Thanks for diving in with us. Until next time, explore the depths, but always remember to come up for air.